This innocent is taken by the raptor and wakes up in a concrete room where there is only a small window and a black phone with a smile drawn on its mask. The raptor approaches him, promising that nothing bad will happen, that he isn't like the one who took the others. But when the phone starts ringing, it becomes evident that the man is disturbed by his own past. The actor can be seen as a representation of abusive parents, but to understand how we got here, we need to go back to the beginning. Feeney is the pitcher on his baseball team and is facing his next opponent, Bruce, also known as Lanza. He throws the ball forcefully, and Bruce fails to hit it. The same thing happens a second time. Feeney is about to secure the victory for his team, but on the third attempt, Bruce makes contact with the ball and sends it out of the field. With that hit, Feeney's team loses. Still, Bruce approaches and congratulates him on his strong arm. On the way home, Bruce comes across a suspicious truck. He will be the first victim. While Feeney is having breakfast, his father scolds him for making too much noise. He has a headache from drinking too much, and when his sister accidentally makes a noise that sets their father off again, they have to be very careful when he is home. On the way to school, they notice a sign with Bruce's picture. He is missing, but he isn't the only one. Feeney asks one if she thinks they will find all the children who have been disappearing. She says yes, but not in the way they would like to hear. They then hear a fight on the street. An older boy threatens Robin Ariano. Despite being smaller, Robin beats him brutally and wins the fight, leaving everyone astonished. When comments that the older boy deserved it after the beating he gave Feeney last year, but adds that it was his mistake to mess with Robin, who is now the most feared kid at school ever since the raptor took Bia Hopper. That's how the newspapers refer to the captor of the innocents, the raptor. Feeney asks him not to mention it, as he is even afraid of the name. At school, some boys threaten Feeney, and he runs to hide in the bathroom while they tease him. Then Robin Ariano arrives and warns them that if they mess with Feeney, they'll have to deal with him. Feeney thanks him, and Robin replies that someday he'll have to learn to defend himself on his own. Meanwhile, Wynn is in class when a couple of detectives arrive to talk with her. They interrogate her about Bruce, the missing boy, because a few days ago, Wynn mentioned having dreamed about his disappearance by a man with black balloons. Even though she knows it was only a dream, the detectives insist. They reveal that they found black balloons at all the crime scenes, a detail not disclosed publicly. The police want to know how she knows these details and suggest that she is covering for the culprit. Wynn gets furious and insults them, saying that she obviously isn't the raptor. Finally, she confesses that sometimes her dreams become reality. That night, Wynn stays at a friend's house, and Feeney returns home. He simply cleans up the mess his father left behind. His father had gotten drunk a few times and fallen asleep. The next morning, Feeney wakes up to his sister's screams. Their father is punishing her with a belt, furious because the police were looking for him at work. He yells that she isn't like her mother. She doesn't hear or see things that aren't there, her dreams are just dreams. Meanwhile, Robin walks through a parking lot and encounters a man standing next to a black truck. It is the raptor. And from that moment on, nobody hears from Robin again. The police begin the search, and Wynn tells Feeney that she's sorry, knowing that Robin was his friend. Feeney replies, "Don't say that, Robin is still my friend." Before going to sleep, he asks Wynn to try to dream of him, hoping that she might find a clue. The next morning, the police are at the door and want to speak with Wynn. This time, they ask for her help or any information she might have. Without Robin, there's no one to defend Feeney, so the group of bullies comes together to beat him. Feeney lives in a typical middle-class suburb, peaceful, full of families, not a particularly dangerous place. Despite this, Feeney is constantly threatened by his father, the school bullies, or the criminal lurking in the neighborhood. I believe one of the messages of this film is that deep down, the father, the bullies, and the raptor are not so different, they share many similarities. I'll explain why later. That night, Wynn once again stays at a friend's house, and Feeney tells her that he will deal with his father. He walks home alone and encounters a black truck. A man appears and clumsily drops what he's holding. The man, with his face painted white, introduces himself as a magician and tells Feeney that he will show him a trick. Feeney approaches and sees black balloons inside the truck. It is the raptor, and it's already too late. Feeney tries to defend himself and manages to injure the raptor's arm, but the captor knocks him out with a can of paint and takes him away. Feeney wakes up on a mattress in a concrete room. The raptor watches him. Now he wears a mask with no expression, not even a drawn mouth. He reprimands the boy for having injured his arm, which is covered in blood as if he had killed someone. He knows Feeney is scared, but assures him that he won't be harmed, promising that nothing bad will happen. The raptor asks if Feeney hears a phone ringing and says he'll go see who is calling, promising to return in a moment with a soda to explain everything. Feeney still clutches the little lamp he used to injure him. He tries to open the door, but it's locked. There is no escape, only a bathroom, a small window, and a black phone. Feeney's father calls one to ask if her brother is with her. In that moment, she realizes that Feeney is the raptor's latest victim. The search for Feeney begins, and when is devastated, she prays, asking Jesus to help her find him. In the concrete room, Feeney hears the black phone ring and feels a ray of hope. He picks it up, waiting to hear a voice that will help him. However, the raptor appears wearing a different mask. This time, it has a big smile on its face. The man tells Feeney that the phone hasn't worked since he was a child and orders him to hang up. He sighs deeply and, with sorrow in his voice, confesses, "Once I was down here when it rang. I think it was due to static electricity. It rang while I was next to it, and I picked it up without thinking. But evidently, there was no one on the other end." If we analyze the raptor's words, they suggest that at some point he was in the same situation as Feeney, in that same basement next to the same phone. His sigh and the difficulty with which he expresses these words indicate that recalling that experience is painful for him. This leads us to think that the raptor might have gone through the same thing as a child, that his father or caretakers probably did to him what he now does to other innocents. Now he has taken the place of his father or abuser, repeating the same cycle with others. This is a common reaction in people who have suffered such traumas. Those who were abused sometimes become abusers themselves, recreating situations where they once felt defenseless, but now repeat them so as not to feel weak, rather, to feel strong, powerful, and in control. Feeney tells the raptor that he knows he killed the other children, but the raptor responds that it wasn't him, it was someone else, and assures him that he will never force him to do something he doesn't want. The raptor insists that he won't hurt him and that someone else committed the atrocities. The answer may lie in the masks the raptor uses. He might be using them to create a separation between his different selves. By putting on a mask, he feels that another person is acting, which allows him to distance himself from the atrocities he commits and avoid taking responsibility or guilt for his actions. This is called dissociation, a psychological mechanism that allows him to disconnect from himself and deceive himself so he won't have to face the reality of his actions. By wearing the mask, he hides his true identity and creates an emotional barrier to protect his mind from the horror he causes, maintaining the illusion that it isn't him but someone else doing the harm. Feeney cries out for help, but no one hears him. The phone rings, and when he picks it up, no one answers. The next morning, the raptor wears only half of his mask with a huge smile. Feeney asks him why he came down to the basement, and in an almost emotional tone, his captor replies, "To see you. I just wanted to see you." This scene suggests that, in some way, the raptor sees himself reflected in Feeney, as if Feeney reminds him of what he once experienced. Additionally, the fact that he wears only half of the mask, with his eyes completely exposed, could symbolize that he is showing a more vulnerable part of his personality. This reinforces the idea that he is repeating the same cycle of abuse that he once endured. The phone rings again, and a hoarse voice calls Feeney by name. The boy asks, "Who is it?" But the voice replies that it doesn't remember its name, because that's the first thing one forgets once you know what's happening. Feeney asks how the voice knows him, and it replies that it almost took him down because he has an enormous arm. At that moment, Feeney realizes that it is Bruce, his baseball rival. He asks if the phone rang for him too. Bruce says yes, but that no other child could hear it, only Feeney. Bruce also warns him that the raptor hears the phone, but he doesn't want to accept it, he doesn't want to believe it. The ability to hear the phone, which both Feeney and the raptor possess, and one's ability to have supernatural dreams and visions, work as a metaphor for a special quality that makes them different from the norm. However, it is precisely this distinctive trait, being outside the status quo, that alienates them and makes them vulnerable. In Wen's case, her ability to have visions is the reason her father punishes her in a similar way. The raptor also has a special ability, but now he completely denies it. He insists that the phone doesn't work and that it's an error for it to ring, even though he clearly hears it. From this, we can infer that, just as with one, this special quality is what led his own father or caretaker or abuser to mistreat him. That is why the raptor now insists on repressing and denying that part of himself. Feeney asks him why he calls him, but Bruce only responds that his arm is tremendous and nearly took him down. Bruce reveals that there is a loose tile in the hallway and that he could dig a hole to escape. He tried, but didn't have enough time. Feeney asks if he will get the chance, but Bruce hangs up. That night, Wen has a dream. She sees images of Bruce, a happy boy with loving parents, until the raptor took him away. Suddenly, Feeney appears, screaming, trapped behind a house door. There is a number on the entrance, but Wen can't see it clearly. She wakes up startled and, in the middle of the night, rides her bicycle to search for that door, hoping to find her brother. Feeney starts digging a hole beneath the loose tile, throwing the dirt into the toilet and covering the hole with a rug. He waits for the phone to ring again, but the raptor returns with his breakfast. When he leaves the door unlocked, and Feeney begins to get excited. The phone rings again, and a boy warns him not to go out because it's a trap. The raptor is waiting with a belt to punish him. If Feeney goes out, he'll be beaten until he blacks out. Feeney opens the door but then regrets it, deciding instead to trust the voice that guides him outside. The raptor is waiting with a belt in hand and a different mask. This time, the mouth is drawn downward, expressing sadness. The image of the raptor with a belt in hand reminds us of the other authority figure who uses the belt to punish Feeney and Win's father. These scenes connect both characters, presenting them as reflections of each other. The raptor is constantly changing masks, and Feeney never knows which one he will encounter. He has no way to predict whether his captor will be calm or if the moment will come when he is hurt. This keeps him on constant alert. Even though the raptor has not yet attacked him, Feeney knows that everything can change at any moment. The same is true with his father. Even when his father seems to be in a good mood, Feeney can never let his guard down. As we saw at the beginning, the boy always has to be careful around him because he knows that at any moment, his father might become enraged and violent. In this way, the raptor can be interpreted as a representation of an abusive, violent, or erratic father. Children of such fathers never know which version of their parent or which mask they will encounter, forcing them always to tread carefully to avoid provoking them and getting hurt. It is also important to mention that just as Feeney cannot escape from the raptor, he also cannot free himself from his home situation. He is doomed to live under his father's control for many more years without the possibility of escape or changing his reality. The phone rings again, and the voice reveals to Feeney that when he was trapped, he pulled a cable from the wall and hid it. When falls asleep during class and dreams of the raptor, she sees him clearly, a man with a mask, hat, and black balloons. She sees the facade of the house where he hides and wakes up at home. When wants to talk to her father, but she asks him to promise not to get angry. He agrees, and when asks what would happen if her dreams were real, her father explains that her mother was ill. She saw, heard, and dreamed of things that didn't exist. Eventually, her dreams compelled her to do terrible things until she ended up taking her own life, but none of that was real. He tells her that he loved his wife but doesn't want one to follow the same path. That's why he refuses to believe that her dreams are real. One insists that her dreams could help find Feeney. Her father then relents, deciding to believe her, and they go together to search for the house that she believes she saw for the first time, the house of Win and Feeney's father. Feeney shows a change. Instead of rejecting her, he decides to listen, believe her, and support her. This gives us a sign of hope. Although Feeney and Win have suffered under an abusive father, they are not doomed to follow the same path as the raptor. Unlike the raptor's own father or caretaker, who never accepted his child's special qualities and never stopped punishing and mistreating him for them, Win and Feeney's father still has the chance to change. If he manages to accept and support his children instead of repressing them, there is hope that he can give them a very different destiny. And by that, I don't mean that people are destined to follow the same path and behavior as their parents. However, it is common for trauma and abusive patterns to be repeated generation after generation until someone makes a conscious effort to break the cycle. For example, the raptor seems to be repeating the behaviors he learned from his own father. Feeney's father is very likely also acting according to what he experienced and learned throughout his life. The bullies who harass Feeney are also probably replicating the mistreatment they likely experienced at home. Hurt people tend to hurt others because unprocessed pain ends up affecting those around them. Trauma and abuse are passed down from generation to generation, perpetuating a vicious cycle of pain and violence, and this cycle can sometimes only be broken when someone becomes aware of what is happening and works actively to change it. Otherwise, the same destructive patterns are likely to continue. That is why, at the beginning, I mentioned that one of the messages of this film is that the raptor, Feeney's father, and the bullies are not so different. They all seem to be replicating the patterns of abuse and mistreatment they experienced in their own lives. Although they manifest them in different ways and to varying degrees of severity, they all end up causing pain to others as a result of the suffering they have experienced throughout their lives. The police go door to door looking for clues and find a man named Max. He explains that he is visiting his brother and has been investigating the case of the missing children. He says that all the children were captured in the same area and that the raptor quickly takes them to his hideout, so he is convinced that he lives nearby. The police tell him to stop investigating and that they will only call him if they see the children. Frustrated, Max ingests white powder and returns to his investigation, unaware that Feeney, like the other children before him, is trapped in the basement just below him. Max's brother turns out to be the raptor once again. He has left the door open to set a trap for Feeney, but Feeney does not fall for it. The phone rings, and the voice warns Feeney that he doesn't have much time. The raptor hasn't slept and probably knows that everything is about to end. His brother Max could discover him soon. The voice repeats that Feeney must hurry. The raptor is losing patience because Feeney isn't playing his game, and if he doesn't play, he cannot win. If Feeney doesn't try to escape, the raptor can't punish him, and that is what the raptor enjoys the most. When Feeney asks, "What does that mean?" the boy only laughs and says that time is running out. Then he warns him that the raptor has fallen asleep and that the door is still open. It is the opportunity Feeney has been waiting for. The boy tells him that the door's lock is the same as on his own bicycle, so he knows the combination. It's written on the wall. Feeney quickly finds it, 23317, though he doesn't know how the numbers are grouped, so he will have to try all the combinations. Carefully, he leaves the basement and goes up to the kitchen where the raptor is still asleep. Feeney tries to open the lock over and over, every second counts. When he finally opens it, the raptor wakes up. Feeney runs into the darkness of the night, but the raptor chases him in his truck and finally catches him, and Feeney ends up back in the basement. The black phone rings again, and this time it is the voice of an angry boy telling Feeney that his pathetic life is about to end. Feeney realizes that it is B. Hopper, a missing boy who used to bully him. Meanwhile, when dreams of B. Hopper, she sees him get into a fight and hit another kid, then pull out a knife and carve the number 7741 into his arm. The police arrive and arrest him. B. Hopper appears in the dream and gets into a patrol car with him. Over the radio, she hears the conversation between Feeney and BES on the black phone, but she can't speak. She gets off the patrol car and arrives at the house where Vans once was, and now it's Feeney's turn. The house number is 7741. Gwen wakes up in the bathtub, trying to piece together what she saw in her dream. On the phone, Feeney tells her that he made a noyo on the wall, but on the other side there was a freezer, and he couldn't escape. Now it's Feeney's turn to try. He uses the toilet lid to make a hole in the wall, then unscrews the freezer with a piece from the bathroom. He manages to open it and finds meat and steaks inside. He tries to force the door to escape, but he can't, it leaves him trapped. Desperate, he starts crying, beginning to accept his fate. The phone rings, and this time it's Robin. He tells Feeney that he can see him and not to cry, he has been with him all this time and will not abandon him. Feeney tells him that he has tried everything but nothing works. Robin reminds him of what he said not long ago, that someday he would have to learn to defend himself on his own, and today is that day. He tells him that he has to be strong and escape for both of them. Robin instructs him to fill the phone with dirt so that it weighs more and to use it as a weapon. He says goodbye, stating that this is the last call. From now on, everything depends on Feeney. What meaning can we extract from all these messages Feeney has received on the phone? I will reveal it to you in a moment. B continues searching for the house. A thunderclap illuminates the sky, and the ghosts of the missing children appear to show him where they were in house number 7741. Gwen returns home and calls the police. The raptor goes out to buy what he needs to take care of Feeney, while his brother Max, still under the influence of substances, continues his investigation. Suddenly, he realizes that the answer has been closer than he thought. Max gathers courage and goes down to the basement, finds Feeney, and is shocked. He knew his brother was hiding something, but he never imagined that Feeney was the raptor. Feeney begs him to help him escape. Excited, Max starts to tell him how he discovered the truth, but at that moment, the raptor appears and strikes Max with an axe outside. Gwen meets up with the police. The house is identical to the one the raptor dreamed of. The raptor accuses Feeney of having caused his brother's death, saying that now he will have to put him with the others. He calls his dog, Samson, a huge animal, and places it at the exit to ensure Feeney cannot escape. The police enter the house, but it's empty, it's the wrong house. The raptor lunges at Feeney with an axe, but the boy runs and causes him to trip over a cable. The man falls into the hole in the hallway and breaks his foot. Feeney hits him with the dirt-filled phone, and when the raptor tries to grab him, Feeney removes his mask. The man screams in terror and immediately covers his face, unable to face the reality that he has been the one to commit all the atrocities. His emotional barrier, his dissociation, collapses completely, leaving him vulnerable to the truth he has tried to hide. Feeney uses the phone's cable to strangle him. The phone rings again, but this time the call is for the raptor, welcoming him to the end of his life with his tremendous arm. Feeney finishes him off during the final fight. He uses everything the other children had told him over the phone, the cable that someone had hidden, the hole that Bruce mentioned could be dug in the hallway, and the phone that Robin taught him to use as a weapon. What meaning can we extract from all these messages that Feeney has received? One possible interpretation is that they represent a sort of therapy for Feeney, voices from all those who were in his place before him, who faced similar situations, sharing their experiences, advice, and support to help him move forward. They gave him tools to confront his abuser, helping him become aware of his trauma. By daring to listen to these voices through the phone, Feeney managed to overcome what tormented him. In contrast, the raptor, although he also heard the phone ring, refused to accept that it was real. He rejected the opportunity to face his situation, his trauma, and the abuses he had suffered. Unlike Feeney, he chose to ignore the voices of those who had gone through the same thing and did not use their advice to move forward. In doing so, he became trapped in his own cycle of abuse, unable to free himself. Eventually, he became what he feared most, the monster who inflicts the same pain he once suffered. The police review the empty house and find a basement containing the bodies of the innocents who couldn't be rescued in time. Feeney throws a stake to the giant dog, opens the lock, and manages to leave the house. It seems incredible, but he is finally free. Meanwhile, as the police examine the crime scene, one sees her brother emerging from the house across the street and runs to embrace him. It turns out that the raptor used two houses for his plan. In one he tortured his victims, and in the other he buried the bodies. The children reunite with their father, who is deeply remorseful for everything that happened and for not having believed them earlier. Perhaps from now on, Feeney and Wynn will have the chance at a future where they no longer bear the weight of abuse and can live more safely and happily, finally breaking the cycle of mistreatment. Feeney returns to school and is now considered a hero. Everyone talks about him as the boy who defended himself and defeated the raptor. With newfound confidence, he walks with his head held high. Monsters are real, and ghosts also live within us, and sometimes, they win. This phrase, from Stephen King, rings very true. The real monsters are not always outside but inside us. They are the violent, destructive, and selfish impulses that often stem from a painful or traumatic past. Many people, like Feeney and the raptor, grew up in abusive, violent, and unpredictable environments. As a result, they carry deep trauma and run the risk of repeating the cycle of abuse and violence they experienced. It is crucial that we dare to recognize these inner monsters and confront the pain that created them, to accept it, process it with the help of professionals, and work to heal. This is essential to prevent the past from repeating itself in future generations. Otherwise, we risk becoming what we most fear, the same monsters who once hurt us. Thank you so much for watching the complete video. I also want to thank you for all your support and remind you that if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please do so right now. It would really help me and ensure that you don't miss any of my videos. Without further ado, see you in the next video.